Hi, this is M. Sriram from CSC D section. Topic is how to implement snake game in Python. Create the screen. To create the screen using Python gaming, you will need to make use of the display set mode function. Also, you will have to make use of the int and the quit methods to initialize and uninitialize everything at the start and end of the code. The update method is used to update any changes made to the screen. There is another method, that is flip, that works similarly to the update method. Updates only the changes that are made, however, if no parameter. To move the snake, you will need to use the key events present in the keyDown class of Python game. The events that are used over here are k to up, k to down, k to left and k to right to make the snake move up, down, left, right respectively. Also, the display screen is changed from the default black to white using the fill method. I have created new variables x1 changed and y1 change in order to hold the updating values of x and y coordinates. Python Snake, the classic game. A snake game is an arcade maze which has been developed by Gremlin Industries and published by Sega in October 1976. It is considered to be a skillful game and has popularized among people for generations. The snake in the snake game is controlled using the four direction buttons relative to the direction it is headed in. The player's objective in the game is to achieve maximum points as possible by collecting food or fruits. The player loses once the snake hits the wall or hits itself. For the Python beginners, those who are interested in making something easier in your domain can definitely try this out, and the module turtle was made exactly for this purpose for the beginners to try out and can also submit as a part of the project. This program will be done in Python 3. Snake game in Python. Snake game is one of the most popular arcade games of all time. In this game, the main object for the player is to catch the maximum number of fruits without hitting the wall or itself. Creating a snake game can be taken as a challenge while learning Python or Python game. It is one of the best beginner friendly projects that every novice program should take as a challenge. Learning to build a video game is kind interesting and fun learning. We will be using Python game to create this snake game. Python game is an open source library that is designed for making video games. It has inbuilt graphics and sounds libraries. It is also beginner friendly and cross platform. Here is the coding of Python game. Snake is a video game genre which where the player maneuvers a growing line that becomes a primary obstacle to itself. The concept, organized in 1976 two-player arcade game, blocked from Gremlin Industries the the ease of implementation has led to hundreds of versions, some of which have word snake or worm in the title. For many platforms, 1982 Tron arcade game based on the film includes Snake's gameplay for the single player light cycles segment after a variant was preloaded on Nokia mobile phones in 1998. There was a resurgence of interest in Snake games as it found a larger audience. There are several hundred Snake games for iOS alone. Gameplay: the player controls a dot, squares, or object on a broaded plane. As it moves forward, it leaves a trail behind resembling a moving snake. In some games, the end of the trail is in a fixed position, so the snake continually gets longer as it moves. In another common scheme, the snake has a specific length, so there is a moving tail a fixed number of units away from the head. The player loses when the snake runs into the screen recorder, other obstacle, or itself. Gameplay Gameplay comes into two major variants. In the first, which is most often a two-player game, there are multiple snakes of the playfield. Each player attempts the block the other, so the opponent runs into an existing trail and loses. Surround for a trail VCS is an example of this type. The light cycle segment of the Tron arcade game is a single player version where the other snakes are all controlled. In second variant, a solo player attempts to eat items by running into them with the head of the snake. Each item eaten becomes progressive more difficult. Example: Nibbler Snakebite. History: animation of generic snake game. The snake design dates back to arcade game Blockade, developed and published by Gremlin in 1976. It was cloned as Bigfoot Bonkers the same year in 1977. Released to Blockade-inspired titles. The arcade game Dominance and Etria VCS game Surround was one of the 9 Etria VCS launch titles in the US and was sold by Sears under the name Chase. That same year, a similar game was launched from the Bailey asteroid as Checkmate. The first known home computer version, titled Worm, was programming in 1978 by Peter Stephenson for the TRS-80 and published by Collard magazine in the same year. This was followed shortly after afterwards with versions from the same author for the Commander PET and Apple II, a clone of the Hustle Arcade 1979 and published by Collad. An authorized version of Hustle was published by Milton Bradley for the TI 99 by 4A in Atria 8-bit computers, Apple II and VCI 20. A snake eats apples to complete a level, growing longer in the process in Snake for the BBC Micro 1982 by Davy Branson. The snake is controlled using the left and right arrow keys relative to the direction it is heading in. The snake increases the speed as it gets longer, and there's only one life. Futures. Viral distribution would allow the game to copy itself to another engage using Bluetooth as the carrier. Single player game has 42 levels, 37 on N series, with both square and hex grids available in the playfield. Higher levels allow the player to climb around the edges and play on both surfaces of the playfield. Up to 4 players can play in a multiplayer game using 4 N-gauge devices and Bluetooth as the carrier. Nokia maintains a worldwide leaderboard of scores, once accessible through the Engage Arena service. Any Engage with a valid data plan can upload the high score from within the game. Snake moves at constant speed. Snake can move only in direction north, south, east and west. Direction of snake can be controlled using up, down, left and right keys. Fruits appears at random location. When snakes eat fruits, its tails get longer. When snake crosses it, the game will over. Then we have the initializer method on the line starting with def init. When we create an instance of our snake class, we pass in the block size, which must be an integer with, with size of each block that makes up our grid. This is used for the size of each segment of the snake as well as for positioning, positioning and moving the snake on the board. We also pass in bounds, which is a tuple of integers with the width of height of the playable area, the same size as the screen area. This is so we can check if the snake has moved out of bounds. In the initializer method, we assign the initializer inputs to our internal variables so that we can use them in other methods later on. Then we call our internal preswarm method, which contains the default setup for the snake's length, initial body segment definitions and starting direction. We will also call reswarm whenever the snake crashes and dies in other ways to restart the game. Thank you for watching my lovable video.